All right, welcome back to Wrestling Retold and Relive with Richie Mars. I, of course, am your humble, gracious host, Richie Mars. Thank you so much for clicking on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts nowadays, for this latest episode. And this is a big one. This is a tribal one. This is going to be year one of Roman Reigns, the tribal chief. We're going through his return in 2020 all the way to SummerSlam 2021. But this is a tall task. I can't do this on my own. What am I, crazy? Maybe a little bit. But I had to call in the backup. I had to call in the big guns. I had to call in. I had to phone a friend. I had to go, who wants to be a millionaire? Go for that option. Phone a friend. I had to call the pro wrestling wizard Doug, and by the time we're recording this, this is his birthday. So, Doug, first of all, happy birthday, and
Thank
second of
you.
all, thank you so much for joining me here today.
No problem. No problem. It feels like another day, but we're gonna live it up today.
Yeah, we're living up, talking about our Lord and Savior, the Tribal Chief.
Tribal Chief, we've got to pay homage to one of the greatest superstars in WWE history. Started off very rocky, but ended up as one of the goats. Forever on God mode. Forever our Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns.
That's right. We're talking about Roman Reigns. But before we get into that, Doug, please tell the audience who and what you're about, and also give us a brief cliff notes on your fandom in wrestling, how you started, and how it's going today.
All right. I am just Doug Brand. You can find me on TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify. Wrestling with Just Doug is where you can find me. I do podcasts based on everything recent, and I do go back and I talk about some past events that happened. But I also have friends to join on the podcast. Hopefully, I can get you on the podcast soon, good sir.
Ooh,
But
nice.
I have friends that generally join me on the podcast, and we just basically talk about everything wrestling. I also have merch, runtheropes.shop. We also have a roster with, of course, Richie, and then we have Chrissy Tina, we've got BC, we've got Michaela, the Ring Queen, and amongst of other awesome creators a part of the Familia. Make sure you check us out at runtheropes.shop and support us. We got drip for sale. So how I got started in wrestling. Oh man. So 96 was the first time I've ever watched any form of wrestling. My cousin was a big nerd and still a big nerd of pro wrestling. He introduced me to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Ric Flair. It was a cage match. Um, I didn't understand what was going on at the time, but the only thing I do know is this was brutal. I love watching this. Why am I getting so hyped in watching this? So 2 weeks later, that was still in my brain, like, hey, where can I watch more of this stuff? And he introduced me again to WCW. This was right. It was the go home show to Starcade when I started watching, and that match with Ultimo Dragon and Dean Malenko has to still be one of my favorite matches of all time. But it was one of those matches where it still keeps up with the modern era. So you have your close false finishes, and you have your oh shit, what the hell moment, and hard hitting, fast paced match with great storytelling. And ultimately, Dean Malenko won that one. It was a winner take all match, and it was such a fun match. And I always highly recommend to people who was like, hey, well, I don't know where to get into wrestling, but where do I start? Start at this match. Trust me. It touches up all of the bases of wrestling as far as storytelling, action, overall a consistent pace of speed when it comes to that match. Not a single time do they slow down. And if it does slow down, it's because, oh, well, someone hit a tope suicida and you're both on the ground and you're slowly getting back up. As soon as both competitors get back up, it's forearming each other again. And it just doesn't stop. And it's so much fun. As far as where I'm going in fandom, honestly, I started doing this. Had a crappy time in life, and I just really needed a different outlet, And Wrestling has always been my go-to. I have always said in my life, there's always going to be three consistents: death, taxes, and professional wrestling. Those will be forever constants in my life. Um, so I saw, I think it was Santi Zap. I've been following him for that short period of time. I'm like, dude, you've covered pretty much of everything wrestling, and I enjoy it. And then I found you, Best Scout Machine, Christy Tina, Myva Ray, and then you guys introduced me to a whole slew of people, and now we have this big, big, big group. And I could not be more grateful to meet you guys because, like, where I thought I was going is definitely not where I am now, and I wouldn't have been in this position without the help from you guys. So greatly appreciate it. And this is me giving all of you your flowers.
Oh, thank you very much, Doug. I really do appreciate it. And I want to thank Santi Zap because without my videos getting categorized under Santi Zap, I don't think people would find me. So I have to thank him for that. So thank you.
Hey, listen, Santi Zap's currently getting ratioed by Dijak, so be happy you're not in his position right now. He's getting tore up right now.
Oh, we're gonna be there one day. Don't you worry. The night is still young.
The night is still young.
so, so this night is still young. Talking about, of course, with this little segue to our tribal chief Roman Reigns, but he didn't start out as our tribal chief. You know, a lot of people like to point into that NXT promo where he's wearing the watch and whatnot as like the first hint of heel Roman Reigns, but he wasn't really designed as that after he broke away from the Shield. You know, he was that John Cena-esque character that they wanted at that time, and unfortunately, it wasn't working because people didn't really buy that, and it really
Mm-hmm.
was uh, like the good parallel would be like when Diesel turned babyface in '95. You know, where it's like he was really cool at this one point, but then WWE's like, oh, we can make him even cooler, and then he wasn't. So
Mm-hmm.
you, I assume, did you watch the entirety of the Roman Reigns babyface run?
I did. I wasn't really a big fan of it. My thing with Roman Reigns and his babyface run, his action and his ability in that ring was there. It was just the promos for me. His promos was such a miss. There would be a moment, a prime example, John Cena, and I felt like he was so exposed when he did that promo against John Cena because John Cena was like, I'm still here because you can't do your job. You're supposed to be the face of this company, but you can barely carry a tune, let alone carry a promo to be in this ring, to share the same space with me. And really, after those turn of events with Cena, it really started to show that, he wasn't as good on the mic as he should have been.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say there was a little redemption when he beat The Undertaker. It was a short and sweet promo. He came out, he let the crowd berate him for about a good 10, 15 minutes before he picked up the microphone and said, "This is my yard now," and dropped it. Like, that's the promos we should expect from Roman Reigns. And I'm glad that he had Paul Heyman as mouthpiece, but we're jumping ahead. Um, Roman, for me, I felt like he broke away from the Shield way too soon. And I granted there was doing that to build Seth Rollins. But Roman needed a little bit more guidance when it came to the promos. Because at any point in time, put him up with that ring with anybody. It gives him, what, 5, 6 minutes for him to be like, okay, this is your fighting style. He will literally, in ring, in real time, accommodate for your fighting style. And it just always turns out to be magic of a match. Sorry, those are my doggos going completely crazy.
Well, you're talking about the big dog. No wonder the dogs are going crazy.
Well, they better acknowledge him for that's for certain. But yeah, that's my thing with Roman. Better promos, and I guess that time away where he was gone, it showed that he took acting classes. Him being in the movie with The Rock, I think it was Hobbs and Shaw,
Yeah.
where he had that brief cameo in there. I think that really helped a lot. Because when he came back and the way he just literally sucked the emotion out the room and just commanded the crowd to, hey, you're gonna do what I'm telling you to do. You're going to obey every command that I say, and you're going to acknowledge me. And he literally had the entire crowd in that little box at the Thunderdome. So if you're able to do that, that shows you took some time and you filled in those holes that left you exposed, and you came back a whole different can of worms. And I just cannot wait to touch up on that, because this man was running a ruckus year one. My favorite year of Roman Reigns.
Yeah, so let's talk about the year one of Roman Reigns. Of course, he didn't come in the first half of the Thunderdome COVID era of WWE because of his immunocompromised. He was immunocompromised with the condition that he has with leukemia. So he, took the responsible decision and said, just like, you know what, gonna stay home. I'm done. And watching his A&E biography, he considered himself retired, which I didn't know.
Oh, wow.
Which is really crazy that he was like content with being like done with wrestling in its entirety. But after a while, he's like, yeah, I'm not done. And he's like, I'm going to come back, but I have conditions. One, I'm turning heel. Two, Heyman's going to be my manager. And all those things kind of like went to fruition, and then we had at SummerSlam, we had The Fiend versus Braun Strowman for the championship. The Fiend wins, and then you see Roman Reigns come out with the Wreck Everyone and Leave t-shirt,
Mm-hmm.
new teeth and everything, just saying to the Fiend, you're just a freak in a mask. Just completely different vibe of Roman Reigns. Now, when this happened, again, we don't have an audience, like an in-person audience watching this show. What were your thoughts on his return, and did you think he turned heel at this point, or do you think this is like Roman with a different edge, but still like a baby face?
So my initial reaction, because I say it's very rare that WWE can get one over on me. So I'm able to predict before it happens. Now, when Roman came back, it completely threw me off guard, because, it was one of those where Roman has been for months and how he's going to tie into the storyline. So, he was making his appearances, and this was way before Paul Heyman was revealed to be his wise man. And that's the one that got me. He's talking about laying new things on the line and running WWE and being back on top. And we're like, you never really fell off. You just disappeared. I don't know what you're talking about. But all right, cool. So, I was really confused there for a second. And the more those promos kept going, I'm like, okay, there's something around this corner, but I don't necessarily know what it is yet. And then it was that following SmackDown before, was it Night of Champions, that pay-per-view with
Payback.
Payback. It was the night before Payback, and they were reading over the contracts, and that camera panned over, and there goes Paul Heyman with the shit-eating grin, like, hey, we're about to flip some stuff on its side. I'm not gonna lie to you, that completely threw me off the track, because I thought Paul and Brock was still a thing, but seeing that Brock kind of just threw Paul Heyman to the wind and left him alone, and Roman's like, hey, come join me, we're gonna rock some stuff together. That was something I never saw coming, because of the beef that they had with Brock. So for that to happen, my first initial thought was, okay, well, Brock Lesnar's obviously going to come back. Something is going to happen, and nothing never really happened. I'm like, wait, how far is this going to go? Um, I wasn't necessarily sure if he was heel. I thought he had a new edge to him, because he spoke differently. His mannerisms was differently, but this time around, he was more confident. He was more, I'm going to get this done. And if you try to stand in my way, you're getting smashed, you're getting kicked aside, and I'm going to keep trucking about my day. The more that attitude kept building and building, because it wasn't just, bam, the Roman Reigns we had now. This was like, I'm loud, but I'm not going to raise mayhem quite yet. And then we got to the, okay, I'm going to raise mayhem, but now I'm going to do some planetary destruction. And by planetary destruction, he recruited Jey Uso. That whole issue happened. He became the right hand man. And then Jimmy got back into the fold. And that was even more, oh God, planetary destruction. Get ready for the Mangekyo Sharingan because here we go. Um, it it built in such a way where you thought you knew what was gonna happen, and the total opposite happened.
And it's really great
And
that WWE actually does that too.
yeah,
Usually like for that era and for that time, it was like, okay, wrestler A is going to do this, then wrestler B is going to do this. And then it became like that. And with the Thunderdome and the COVID era, it was even worse tenfold because there's only so much you can do when
mm-hmm,
COVID's an actual thing. And when they actually started meticulously laying actual clues and actual story beats and threads to this one overarching story, something that we haven't seen in wrestling for quite some time, it was like, oh wait, this is happening, but that happening caused this to happen, and this happening
mm-hmm.
causing this to happen, and then you go through the whole like journey through it all, and you're like before you know it, you're on an adventure and journey that's gonna be like you're like, oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever, you know?
And you're like, how did we get here? How did we get here? This just all started because I wanted the world title, and before you know it, I'm one of the longest reigning champions of all time, and I literally have the whole entire company in the palm of my hand, and I can do whatever I so choose to it. You're just, but weren't you just in a Hell in a Cell match with Jey Uso just 2 weeks ago? That was 3 years ago. How did we get here, bro?
Yeah. It's almost like you're going into college freshman year, you're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and then you close your eyes, you open them up, you're at your graduation ceremony. You're like,
Just
what just happened here?
in need of coffee, just tired. Like, thank you for the diploma. I'm gonna go back to bed after this.
But going into the segment with Roman and Paul, with Paul Heyman being revealed as the wise man, and what I thought was pretty cool was Roman said that's not a prediction, that's a spoiler. Then it pans to Paul Heyman and says believe that. So what happened there was almost like a retirement of those respective catchphrases because we wouldn't really hear believe that anymore. And the
Mm-hmm.
prediction and a spoiler, we would hear from time to time, but not as much as Heyman was with Brock. And we're going to fast forward to Payback, where it's the triple threat. And I'm not sure if contracts actually work like this. So it's revealed that Roman hasn't signed the contract for the match at Payback. So the match starts out with the Fiend and Braun Strowman, and then both of them are down. Roman's music hits. Heyman gives him the pen and the contract. Roman signs the contract, and then bing, bada, boom. Roman is your Universal Champion. So very emphatic way of winning a championship. He's not wearing the tactical vest. He's wearing the wreck everyone and leave T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a cool vibe that we're getting. And I think what also helped it was the Thunderdome. Because if Roman were to come back and people were in the arena, like people would either be cheering or whatting him, and you couldn't get those subtle facial expressions, those subtle looks and promo abilities over as much as it did without any of that. And that's when we fast forward into the Jey Uso story arc right now, with Jey Uso becoming the Universal Champion's number one contender thanks to a couple strings pulled by Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. They're political chips, if you will. That is apparently a storyline with many, many people on the roster. So when Jey Uso is announced as the first challenger to Roman Reigns, are you excited? Are you hesitant because we haven't seen Jey Uso in a solo capacity? Or do you think it's like nepotism kind of running wild?
I want to say I was hesitant, and I was hesitant not because of Jey Uso's ability. My thing with wrestling, I'm just a big lover of story. Anything with a good story, you give me a reason to care, you've got me, I'm invested. I was already heavily invested by this point. Now, I thought maybe Jay would join Roman and have some form of union. And eventually it did happen, but it didn't happen right away. And the confusion I had was, granted, Jay didn't want to acknowledge Roman at the time. And that's where it all stemmed from. I want you to acknowledge me. I'm your new tribal chief. And he's like, well, I mean, who signed off on it? And this was before the Wild Samoans kind of made it official, like, hey, Roman is your tribal chief officially. Um, I was just confused. Like, what was there to gain from this? Simply, Jay just wanted to test his chops against Roman, and I felt like Roman took that personally because we've already seen it. You go at him personally, the first thing he's going to say, "Oh, you're trying to take food off my table. You're trying to take food and money away and time from away from my family. Like, why would you do that?" And Roman's like, lay down, take this ass whooping, take this payday, let's move on about our merry way. Jay was like, absolutely, positively not. No, this is my chance to kind of show my family I can stand on my own 2 feet. And I can completely understand that from a personal standpoint. Like, sometimes you just got to do things for yourself to see if you can do it. And I really think that's where that relatability of that story came together. And that's what made me hesitant. Like, is it worth you sticking your neck out there against family when you know there's something possibly building that involves you? So when that was all said and done, I got more of the, poor Jay. You really messed up, Brody. Yeah, you should have left that alone.
Yeah, I did love their clash at the Clash of Champions match, just because like I don't know why I always like throwing the towel finishes. Like maybe it's like the Rocky fan in me, but it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
Jay's like going to the gym. He's like, "Don't you throw it? Don't you throw it?" And then Roman just kind of like drags him in the center and just whoops Jay's ass, and then it's just like finally the towel gets thrown in. But something that I also love in that match is like the first, I guess, heeldom you see of Roman, where he kicks out of Jay's splash, but he kicks out in a way that low blows Jay. And then you see
Yeah.
the smirk of Roman's face, like so you see like
Hmm.
he's like, yeah, I did that. Like we saw in the previous SmackDown that he did to Corbin, but now he's doing it to Jay, which is a whole completely different thing that's going on.
Another thing I want to point out that really, really solidified for me that he was a heel. It was the moment where Jay was getting the upper hand on Roman. And Roman dropped down to his knees and he starts fake crying. He's like, I'm sorry. I love you. You're my family, this and that and the third. And then just levels Jay. And I'm like, wait, did you just fake sob to get an advantage over Jay? You are a jerk. How dare you? You pulled on a man's heartstring just to get the upper hand. Like, yeah, this is going to be probably one of the most wicked heel runs from Roman we will ever see. This is some next level stuff right here.
Yeah, and like that's the power of community theater, those acting classes paid off.
Hmm.
But going into the Hell in a Cell match, that Hell in a Cell I Quit match. Now, this one, in compared to the Clash match, I didn't like as much just because I felt there were a lot of moving parts that weren't really meshing well, like the cell, the I Quit stipulation, people coming in, like, and also was the red cell. I hate the red
Uh,
cell. It's just like a giant eyesore to me.
it is.
And then like the ending was top notch with Jimmy coming in and Roman crying, like he said again, the crying, and Roman saying, "I don't know who I am anymore. I'm sorry."
Hmm.
And then Jimmy's like, "We could fix it." And he's like, "I love you, man." And Roman's like, "I love you too." And then immediately puts on the guillotine choke, which was the new finisher he was going for at the time. And then Jay trying to let go. He's like, "I quit. I quit." And then you see after the match, like Roman, like stoic face, like wipes away like the crocodile tears.
Hmm.
And now we have our new right hand man of Jey Uso, who then later becomes main event Jey Uso because of this run, bopping up and down. Now, when Jey Uso gets turned into this henchman, what I like is there was a story reason why he got turned into a henchman. It wasn't because, oh, we're family. Oh, this is a turn for the sake of a turn and hope he gets over. They made Jey Uso, one of the Usos who at the time weren't well developed as characters, into the strongest part of your weekly television product.
Mm-hmm.
And that just goes to show the strength of what was going on at that time. Now, what did you think of the right hand man, Jey Uso, I guess, arc in this year one and how he developed over time? Did you think it was natural? Did you think it was forced at times? What do you think?
I think it was natural. The Thunderdome era was really a great time for storytelling. So they really took the embodiment of, not actually having a crowd, and they focused on actually telling great stories. So with the Jey Uso arc, it started off very slow because he came back, he got into the war with Roman for that small period of time, and then he was steadily trying to find that positioning, that perfect positioning. Now he was the right hand man, but like right hand man at the time didn't really have that much clear coat, what's the word I'm looking for? A strict guideline of what you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do. And I felt like that storyline was opening up that door and like, hey, as a right hand man, you're supposed to protect the tribal chief. As the right hand man, you're supposed to protect the interests of the island of relevancy. And it felt like throughout the week there was more responsibilities being dropped on Jey, and at certain times, it seemed like Jey would buckle under the pressure, but it would make his character evolve even more. And that was the best part of the story, is just watching him naturally evolve with the story, with the situations that Roman was going through. Because there's been times where Jey was just pulled into an inherent beef that Roman had. He's like, that's my tribal chief. You're not going to do that. And that's when I felt like for Jey, it clicked for him. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing here. This is my role in the bloodline. So, was it? No, I feel like that was year two when it was explained why he was the right hand man. So we're not going to go
Yeah,
based off.
yeah. It was a lot of Stockholm syndrome that Jey Uso was getting around that time, and you had like for example, the next pay per view match is the champion versus champion match of Roman versus Drew McIntyre in that Thunderdome era, where Jey helped Roman win, even though Roman said, "I didn't want your help." But at the end, Roman hugs Jey, and then on SmackDown, he's berating Jey for helping him. So
Mm-hmm.
always that mixed signals of Roman being like, "I love you," but like at the same time, what are you doing? Like, why can you be so stupid? So it's like you're getting invested in these character interactions, and with Roman continuing on this winning streak, we fast forward into his next opponent and next series of title defenses against Kevin Owens. Now, there are people who just have chemistry together and you can't really explain why. Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens are two of these guys where I'm like, they work. I can't explain why they work, but they do. And
Agreed.
and we see them throughout the many years of this bloodline saga. And this is their like kind of first chapter. But before it was Kevin Owens as the heel and Roman Reigns as the babyface. Now the roles have reversed, and you have the one-on-one match, you have the TLC match, you have the cage match, and then you have the last man standing match. Now, when you see Kevin Owens as the second challenger for Roman Reigns, as of now, do you see Roman Reigns' championship reign as elevating, or do you think like the guys that they've had so far were kind of below Roman at this point?
Um, at the start of the feud, I will say that they were below Roman. At the end of the feud, they were most definitely elevated. Kevin and Sammy are the two best examples of that. I hate to say it, but before Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens was stuck in mid card hell.
Mm-hmm.
He's had really good matches, had really good mid title matches, but they never really went anywhere. And I felt like he was just stuck in a vicious cycle of being in mid card. So with Roman pulling him out of that and actually having a almost, what was it, 3 months continuous storyline with him,
Mm-hmm.
it really elevated him because you first had to shed the asshole. No offense. I love you, KO. If you hear this, don't fight me. You have to shed the asshole that is Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens has done some very heinous things in the past. And in order for him to be believable, you've got to have form of sympathy for him. So the sympathy was there when Roman literally bashed Kevin Owens left and right for weeks on end. So now that we finally have the sympathy card, we can finally start building on it. And now that they were building on Kevin, his stock kept going up. The first match they had where I know that was their second match when he got hit by the golf cart. That was so hilarious. Oh, and Papa's up there. That's one of my favorite lines of that whole entire.
That was
But
the
I
last
felt
man
like,
standing match, right?
yeah. Oh man, it was just so much shit talking in that match. But like, I really truly felt like that match was that match that elevated Kevin Owens because, yeah, there was a lot of talking in that match, but that talking pertained to everything that they went through building up to that point, and it made sense with that. So, another Sammy is a really, really, really good one. Stuck in mid card hell. He was stuck in this conspiracy theory storyline before he linked up with Roman Reigns, and that match he had in Saudi, I believe that was the peaking point for Sami Zayn. I don't think he can go any much higher than that than he did with Roman Reigns.
And another thing I like about the last man standing match, like the finish got botched a bit because Roman Reigns was handcuffed and the referee just stopped counting because Paul Heyman was trying to like unclip like Roman Reigns' handcuffs and he couldn't see it. So you just see the referee just like awkwardly standing and not counting. I remember that was like a big like talking point at
Oh
the time
yeah.
where it's just like you got to count it like a shoot, but it's like we're not ready for Roman to lose the championship yet. So what do you do?
But yeah.
So it is what it is. But that transitions into another beloved feud being Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, and Edge. But first, we have to kind of set the stage right here. The same night that Roman retains over KO, Daniel Bryan and Edge are in the Royal Rumble, with Edge winning on top, going to get a shot at WrestleMania 36. And then at the Chamber, Daniel Bryan wins the Elimination Chamber to win a shot against Roman Reigns for the championship. That very same night, due to Roman Reigns' contractual obligation, contract clause thingy, where it's like, oh, I'm not going to be in the Chamber. I'm going to fight after the Chamber. Where I'm like, all right, that's fair.
Uh,
And and then that match lasted about a couple minutes. Roman wins, but then Daniel Bryan gets his rematch at Fastlane, which Edge, who was special guest enforcer, costs Daniel Bryan that match, saying the WrestleMania main event is his, nobody else's. And of course, we get a triple threat match because that's what you do with three people who don't like each other. You brawl in a
yeah,
triple threat match at WrestleMania at all times. But let's rewind a little bit. What did you think about this story, starting off with Daniel Bryan and then Edge kind of be inserted after the fact, and the reinsertion of Daniel Bryan into this championship match?
So I have a running joke with Daniel Bryan before I get into this. I always say sometimes when I don't get invited to like hang out at a party or something, I will just Daniel Bryan my way in, meaning I will just interject myself and it has nothing to do with me at all. Um, there there was a lot of moments during that feud where it's just like, dude, you've had your opportunity. Why are you here? Go somewhere. Stop interjecting yourself into this match. Edge and Roman, they have a reason and they had a proper story that was built and it made a whole lot of sense. There's just Daniel Bryan like, oh, y'all having fun? Oh, y'all putting the title on the line? Shit. Um, I love how they just interjected Brian and then just gave him like a last minute piece of that story that just like, okay, that's plausible. Okay, we can get behind that. I kind of want to do the same thing too if I was in his shoes. Um, and the match, great, amazing. I love the match. The fact that he stacked both Edge and Daniel Bryan on top of each other and then pinned them both. Huh?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy visual because Heyman for weeks were saying Roman's going to stack him and then pin him, smash him and then stack him, and
Stack
then
them.
he did, and we're like, oh wow, he actually delivered
He,
on his
that's
promise, you know?
and that's where I had a newfound respect for Roman Reigns. Is like you called your shot and you lived up to it, and I know it. I'm not even mad. Honestly, I wanted Edge to win.
Mhm.
Um, This was like what his big return, his grand return, his first WrestleMania back since that injury. And I felt like, give Edge a good go home, feel good story. But, eventually the title was going to end up going back to Roman Reigns. And I figured, Edge would pin Daniel Bryan so that makes Roman Reigns still look very credible and strong since he didn't get pinned. And then we'll spin the block back and it'll be a one-on-one match between Edge and Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns gets his just due and his title back. Not at all. So what Roman said was, screw you lay down, screw you get on top of him. 1, 2, 3. Bye bye. I will see you guys at next Mania. Disrespectful in its right, in my honest opinion. I think after backstage we would have to fight for real because there's no way you're gonna humiliate me in front of 10,000 people and then say acknowledge you. No, you're gonna acknowledge these hands, sir.
It was crazy because like when I was following along in this match, and it was pretty cool because you had a couple stories like you had like the past, present, and future in a lot of ways with Edge, Daniel Bryan, and Roman. Then you had all three of these guys had wrestling taken away from them at one point before this match.
hmm
So I'm just like, oh, there's a lot of different stories you could tell with it. And for me, I was like more disappointed because I'm just like, man, Edge and Roman have the story, and then like the fans, they all wanted Daniel Bryan in there, but it's like you can't really blame the fans that much because there were no fans in the building, you know.
hmm
But this would end up being, at least as of this recording, Daniel Bryan's last WrestleMania, so they probably wanted to use that kind of as a negotiation ploy to get him to re-sign again. But at the same time, Bryan said in interviews saying like he felt hollow during this WrestleMania match, which is so weird
That
because
is.
it's just kind of like imagine being in the main event of WrestleMania and you're like you just don't feel anything during this entire match. And the story was fine in theory. Like there were some tremendous promos by Edge, by Bryan, by Roman, but it didn't really feel like WrestleMania, if that made sense. Maybe it's because
Yeah.
it was the first one coming back. Maybe it's because this was like the first like WrestleMania where that was built through the pandemic. But it just kind of felt off. Did you have the same feeling with this being like a WrestleMania match, but not really feeling like a Mania match?
Um, I don't know. For me, it did feel like a WrestleMania match. There was some stakes on it. We was putting them on the grill. There was very high stakes in that match, and I felt because of there were high stakes, to give it a big fight feel. And generally, WrestleMania from cover to cover is generally it's just a whole series of big fight feels. The only thing I would say that was lacking with that match, there was a lot of storytelling for me, but there wasn't enough action to go with it. So like the way I like to see wrestling is a 50-50. You have 50% story and then the other half would be your action. So story and action. And I felt like there was more story, which I can completely understand because I guess they were trying to make Brian's role a little bit more I guess it was the sympathy card, as I call it, where Brian is getting completely obliterated that first half of the match before he comes back as this Hulk Hogan ish. But Edge was like, we're gonna stomp that fire out for a quick second before we can continue on to this match, and it was like that for a little minute. So if they would have added more action to follow the sympathy card, it would have been a better big fight field match that most people were looking for, and I think that what was lacking.
And going on to Daniel Bryan, because Daniel Bryan would be out of the company in a couple weeks, if not like a month. And that last match he had with Roman Reigns within the Thunderdome was the debut of the final boss kind of music. I'm not talking about The Rock. I'm talking about Roman Reigns' head of the table theme song. And that's when I feel like the character completely shifted because he's been using the Shield like revamp remix for the entirety up to this point. But when you got that head of the table mix, you're like, ooh,
Boom.
this is a different guy. This vibe is crazy. And this story of Daniel Bryan, if he loses, he leaves WWE. And there we've seen like if you lose this match, you leave WWE. Did you think Bryan was legitimately gone, or did you think he was going to come back eventually?
I thought he was gonna come back. I thought they were just writing him off screen so he could spend time with his family. Because I think just recently he had a kid,
Yeah.
so I thought he was going home. Spend time with the kids, get to know the baby, and then he'll be back within 6 5 months time. And then he pops up on AEW, and I'm like, wait, what? I honestly thought it was one of those, Judy Bagwell on a pole match, something like that. You'll get the consequences, but within the next 2 3 months, he should come back, but on a different show. Like you would be on a SmackDown versus you being on Raw, or you get sent to NXT instead of you being on SmackDown, and so on.
Mhm.
Because I know Brian said that at one point in time he did wanted to go down the NXT and kind of help the younger stars bring themselves up. So I kind of figured DV's going to step back from the main roster stuff and he's going to come back and it's going to help train the younger guys. That was not the case.
Yes, but Daniel Bryan, before he left, did give a rub to one star who hasn't been utilized in his full potential in many people's eyes, Cesaro. Claudio Castagnoli gets the title match, not at Backlash, but WrestleMania Backlash, because we're in the backlash of WrestleMania. And that was Cesaro's first and only WWE pay per view event, a match where he was disappointed mostly because there was no crowd in there. What did you think about Cesaro as a main eventer? Did you see him as a main eventer or the potential being there? And what went wrong, in your opinion?
I've always seen Cesaro as a main eventer. Cesaro always has that ability to captivate fans with his freaky strength, agility, and ability. The fact that he's able to grab a grown ass man out of midair to either follow it up with a suplex or turn it into a neutralizer. One of the strongest people I've seen yet in WWE. Massively underrated. I really felt like he should have been in the main event picture way sooner. When he came back as his little 007 gimmick, I felt like he should have been started heading to that main event then. The way he is just the way he swung Mark Henry will forever be one of those jaw dropping things for me. Because looking at it, I'm just like, there's no way. There's no. Oh wow. Oh wow. Go spin that man. Keep going. Keep going. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And there will never be another athlete that will be able to do the things that Cesaro's done. Now, I will give a notable mention to Tyler Bate. He's also another competitor with a freaky strength for his size. He's maybe an inch taller than I am. And you are literally picking up dudes 6 times your size on your shoulder and spinning around one direction to spin around the other direction and turn it into a DVD or a Michinoku driver. Like wildly strength, wildly freaky ability. I want to know Cesaro's workout regimen so I can follow it to the letter. You're vegan. I'm going vegan too. Damn it.
So Roman's defenses at this point were Cesaro, Bryan, Edge, KO, Jay. So you got a very good eclectic mix of styles and indie darling, so to speak. And it seemed like Roman in this reign so far was just like killing off the old guard, the popular names of the independents. And now we're going to go to an older name, of course, that being one Rey Mysterio, which
Ooh.
this happened on SmackDown. It didn't happen on the Hell in a Cell pay per view. And the reason for that was apparently Fox wanted more big time matches on their network. So Hell in a Cell was destined to be on SmackDown with Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio. And of course, USA is like, hold up a minute. We want a Hell in a Cell match. So the next week on Raw, there was a Hell in a Cell match between Bobby Lashley and Xavier Woods. So,
Oh,
so
I remember that match. Oh God.
just like they didn't give my boy Woods a chance here.
Mm-mm.
But with Roman and Ray, did you think it had more potential of being a pay per view program rather than just a SmackDown, or did you think as long as the build is good, it doesn't matter what show it ends up on or the blow off is?
Honestly, I think it just really depends on the build, and I think that build was at that point of the water going over the pot and onto the stove. Yeeting Dominic Mysterio out the ring over the barricade. That is something you just can't return from. That is just on site type energy. Um, and I really think after seeing that, I'm like, yeah, this match is going to be a complete banger because it is at that boiling point. Um, Roman again has a way of telling stories, and it doesn't matter who he's paired up with. He just knows how to naturally make the character's situation with Roman feels more authentic, and it's not rushed. It doesn't feel forced. It just feels like, you picked up a book and you just started to organically like it because it gave you a reason to give a shit. Dom getting heated? No, you've got my attention. I officially care now because I want to know what happens next. Because boy, that was rude.
So we gotta go a little bit concurrently here, not just Roman feud, but a development within what would be known as the Bloodline storyline, because Jimmy Uso is back, and Jimmy's trying to convince Jey to leave Roman a little bit, but Jay's having this inner turmoil, and then when Jey and Jimmy keep screwing up because of reasons, Roman's calls Jey Jimmy, and Jay's like, "But I'm Jey," and Roman said, "At this point, does it even matter?" And I'm just like, "Ooh."
Mm,
This is what I call, like, during this era of Roman, the gaslighting Roman. The gaslit era of Roman is wild and crazy, and I think this was like the first official like story that used gaslighting to promote their major character shifts, because you would
mhm.
see Jay leave SmackDown for a period of time and then Jay trying to fill in Jimmy tried to fill in Jay's shoes as the right hand man, not working, and then Jay's back, and now they're all one happy family, which transitions to them winning the tag team titles from the Mysterios, both Ray and Dominic. What did you think about the Usos reuniting? Did you think it was the right decision after all the development we gave to Jay, or did you think it was kind of a missed opportunity at the time to individualize them a little bit more?
I felt for the time being, that Jay was by himself. That was good because everybody knows who Jamie is, but no one knows who really Jay is. So that time we got to know Jay, understand Jay, to know his character. Um, for the Usos getting back together, it was one of those things where it was just a matter of when. Um, Usos are just synonymous with tag team wrestling, and the fact that Roman had more people on his back for that title. He's gonna need that backup. Jay was not gonna be able to do it by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And this was way before Solo came into the picture. So it was one of those, when is it gonna happen? How is it gonna happen? And is it worth for it to happen? And in my opinion, I think it was good that it happened. The Usos were already a household name, but they weren't the likes of the New Day,
Mm-hmm.
who shattered almost every record almost in tag team existence. So if you're gonna put Roman Reigns together with a team, it's got to be a team that can translate that same energy and storytelling that Roman is doing. And you also have to follow up with Roman what he's doing. Because you can't have the longest reigning champion of all time and then there's just the Usos. Like you can't have that. If you're going to be the tribal chief, the head of the table, and the island of relevancy is supposed to be this magical, godly, heavenly place where everyone's on top, everybody's eating good, everybody's living good, you got to have that with the Usos too. So them winning those titles, breaking those records, and doing the run that they've been on with those titles, that was a perfect line in the sand, sunset ending of the story over the hill. Bye guys. Perfect. It was perfect. And I felt like adding that tension to bring them together was a perfect move because it was always one of those things in the back of your head of, okay, they're back together. They're eventually going to turn on Roman, but when? And there was always that tension in the air with their promos like, okay, something's up. It's not going to happen yet, but something's up. Something's building. And the very next week, that tension meter goes a little bit up further. You're like, so now we're at that point where it's peak point. That tension is literally boiling out the kettle. And I will give the writers props for this. Instead of pulling the trigger on the tension, they've let it stress out even more to the point where you're just like, dude, what is going to happen? When it's going to happen? When is it going to happen? And when it happens, you're just like, oh my God, finally! Oh, just screaming at the TV of just finally. When Jey super kicked Roman in the face where he was like, you're out. Because I'm out too. I popped so dang hard. And that's what I mean. That tension was up there. And they were like, nope, don't pull the trigger yet. Just wait. Nope, wait till next week. Wait till after the pay per view.
Mhm.
Okay, wait till next month. Now do it.
Yeah.
And it makes it hit that much harder. So, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, and I think that's what WWE is doing now with their stories, where it's just like, it's not, for lack of a better term, instant gratification of a story.
Mm-hmm.
When we had the Cody Rhodes story that lasted, about 2.5 years. You had Roman's Bloodline story, which is still kind of ongoing, but his championship run has lasted that 1,316 days, to tell that story. And it's just wild that we're in a place where I think people in this day and age where TikTok, where YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, where the attention span is so short, but we can still tell stories as long as this. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that just goes to show the place we are in wrestling and how much story does drive wrestling for the better, because they've been building this up, building this up, building this up, and this is coming off of arguably WWE's worst creative year in 2019, and they were building and building and building, and it finally paid off this year at WrestleMania. And where people are saying it's like, not only is it an Avengers Endgame like an ending, but it was almost like the storybook of everything that happened in WWE so far, like finished. It was the season finale. And now we're in this new era where people aren't really sure what it is, but we have an idea of what it is. But it's like, it's a very cool and exciting time for that. And a big part of that transition was, again, in this Roman Reigns reign, he defeated Edge at Money in the Bank thanks to interference from Seth Rollins. So Edge and Roman finished their deal at Money in the Bank. But then we have a returning John Cena, where he got
Oh,
biggest reaction probably of his career. And the crazy thing about this is that we have had this match before, with the Roman and John Cena, which you made reference to earlier with that promo battle. But now we're in a place where John Cena and Roman Reigns are in two different places right now. Roman, new swagger, new confidence. Cena, established name in Hollywood, coming back, and now trying to take down Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, for the time being, and trying to get that number elusive 17 title win, world title win. When John Cena came back and Roman Reigns, did you think, because this was happening at SummerSlam, did you think that was the right place to do it, or did you think this is like a WrestleMania match?
I felt like that was the right place to do it. It was in between that point where Roman really didn't have a story. And he was just, missing shows here and there. So this was great that Cena came back and to challenge him. And honestly, I felt like it was the right move due to the last time we saw those two in the same ring. Cena kind of exposed Roman. So here's years later. Hey, let's see what you're about now. You're the tribal chief. You got a new, fresh coat of paint. You look good, you smell good, you look great. Let's see what we're working with here.
It's that conditioner.
And so I felt like Roman at that point, he even had that notion of, okay, I gotta bring it this time. You embarrassed me. I gotta bring it this time. And I really felt like Roman definitely did brought it to John Cena.
Now, when Cena came back, because originally in storyline, it wasn't going to be Roman and Cena. It was determined that Finn Balor was the next challenger because he got called up from NXT, and then it was going to be Roman and Balor. But then Balor got taken out at the press conference, and John Cena, uh, with comically big letters, wrote Cena where the Balor signature should have been. And if only all
Ugh,
contracts worked like that, we'd be good.
for real.
So this is technically year two, so we won't touch on Roman and Balor so much right here. But what did you think of the Balor involvement within the Roman and Cena storyline? Was it a good kind of Easter egg such slash setup for a future Roman and Balor match, or did you think it just kind of made him look less than compared to Roman and Cena?
It really made him look less than. I felt like Finn got buried. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I felt like Finn got completely buried. The fact that they built him up over the course of those weeks leading up to it, and then you kind of like pull the cloth from under his foot. And I felt like he hasn't really bounced back since then. I mean, granted, he's with the Judgment Day and he's on TV regularly, but like, I still feel like Finn Balor should be a main event player.
I agree.
Here's his moment to be a main event player, and then you sit him all the way to the back of the line after building him this way. Um, and I really felt like they screwed him over, and I know that's year two, but I really felt like they screwed him over with their actual title match and the turnbuckle misfiring. Like, ugh, that made no sense, and they still never really touched up on like what was the reason, bro?
So the reason was, and they referenced it, and this is the only reason we got, it was an act of God that did it. It was an act of God that caused the turnbuckle to collapse from within itself, that caused Demon Finn to fall down, destroy that ring, and then Roman to retain the championship. So, if you're playing at home, this is not only this isn't the only match that God was in technically. There was also in Backlash 2006 if you want to go all the way back then. It was the McMahons, Vince and Shane versus Shawn Michaels and God. And the ending of the match was Vince, Shane, and the Spirit Squad winning the entire thing for the Team McMahon, and Jerry Lawler's his commentary line, which is embedded in my brain ever since I saw it live, was the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit Squad. And you want to know why WWE's creative was in the gutter for as long as it was?
The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit squad. I'm dead.
It's amazing that Mr. Dolph Ziggler had a career, a renaissance career, and survived that entire thing.
Oh, good old Nikki.
Yeah.
Nikki!
He was so excited in that Titantron, like they did the whole roll call. Like him and Mikey were my favorites, just because they just like shouted so much, and I was just like, oh boy.
No, they were here. They were here. They were ready, and they were happy just to be there in that same space. Just, you know what? I'm going to show my spirit. Mikey!
It was like the head like not for me. He was like in it. He was in it. It's just like, you know, if it's like you're in a blockbuster movie, whether it's Martin Scorsese or George Lucas, you have one line, you have one shot. This was the shot, and they brought it all in that Titantron.
Oh, they were so freaking ready. Like, all right, ready? Action! Yeah!
So
Yeah.
So,
Get a hint of Goldberg in there. Okay.
oh, good old Bill. Uh, so we're still in the midst of the Roman and John Cena feud, and this is where Roman's infamous missionary promo was in, which I'm not going to get into. Just basically comparing Cena to missionary. Uh, take with that what you will, and then
With what you will.
and then the John Cena retort was all he needs is 3 seconds to beat Roman Reigns, including a segment where he schoolboyed Roman up and made his own 3 count, or the crowd gave their own 3 count. So easy enough to understand kind of story. Roman's different guy. John Cena's like, I can beat you. It just takes 3 seconds. Now, even though like you and I, we've been watching wrestling for a while, and when we have part timers come in, usually when they're in a promoted match like this, it's not really going to go well because they're not going to be around. And with John Cena, we had a little bit earlier with Edge when they were kind of being placed in that position as challengers to Roman Reigns just to kind of put them over. Did that kind of kill some of the suspense for you, or were you just being like, this is a match, just get out under Roman's belt. We're gonna get more full time challengers eventually.
Yeah, I felt like this was just another match under Roman's belt, but also in the same breath, I felt like this is your progress report, right? So we saw how things went in your babyface run, and so far you are shattering all the doubt that we've had for Roman moving into this heel. So I felt like Cena is that before and after, if that makes sense. Like before, you weren't really good on the mic. You were a good big time player, but you just didn't have it. So now he's like, okay, you took some promo classes. You have the it factor. You look good. Let's see if your athletics is still there. It was obviously still there, and if anything, I felt like he's gotten better. He hadn't missed a beat. Um, it was, just another day in the office, but you got to have your status report of, you look good. Let's see if you can go up against the measuring stick of this business. If you can somehow outmeasure this measuring stick, we will give you the reins to this company. And that's what happened.
I remember this match, and not any move wise or promo wise after the entire SummerSlam match, but John Cena came out with like the Super Mario Brother like 3
Oh, I wanted
logo,
that shirt so bad.
and I wanted it too. Problem was, it was part of an NFT package that was $1,000. Yeah, $1,000 for a T-shirt.
Sheesh.
They and John Cena even admitted, like, yeah, this was a failure because they only sold about 37 of them.
Yeah.
Like 37 out of like I think there were like they made like 1,000 packages or something like that. But this was WWE trying to get the NFT like market going on, and the T-shirt was a part of that package. So I would have loved to buy that Super Mario 3
Same.
T-shirt, but it's like it was a part of an NFT package. So I was just like, man, you gotta be kidding me. But now I'm content right now because I just got my RKR-KO shirt in the mail. So I'm gonna be rocking the RKO.
Hey.
So I'm just like, all right, we're gonna rock now. But
Yeah.
but with this SummerSlam match, this really was the kind of I guess perfect way to end Roman's year one because you had the start with his new persona with Jey, and then you end with John, who was the original measuring stick in Roman Reigns' career promo wise. And of course, after the match, we got the return of one Brock Lesnar looking like his good old farmer self, ponytail, beard, and all.
Farmers only.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure he has a profile. But Brock coming back and teasing with Roman, with Brock as the babyface, Roman as the heel. With this tease coming off of SummerSlam 2001, What did you think of it? Did you think it would lead to anything good, or were you like, oh god, not another Brock Roman feud?
So honestly, my first thought, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it was definitely, oh god, another Roman Brock feud. But the more I saw the story being built, and it goes back to what I said about Roman and John Cena, like you have your progress report with John Cena. Now here is your actual end of semester exam. This is it. This is everything that you've tried to either erase from history, such as, your suffering succotash promo, to literally getting booed out the arena because you were oversaturated or being forced down our throats. This was your, hey, this is your, here's a way to make all of this go away. If you can put on a very good match that is something that you haven't done in your previous lock ins, you have the opportunity to sway everybody in this crowd. And I honestly think he swayed everybody in that crowd, not once, but twice.
Mm.
And it was needed. It was definitely no balloons. It was one of those. It was definitely needed, and ever since Roman conquered, ha ha ha, Roman conquered John Cena and Brock Lesnar. That was the, here's the reins. Whatever you want to do moving forward with any other new competitors, you have our support because you were able to not only carry these already established stars, but somehow you've made them even more relevant because they're standing across from you. How do you do that when you've already got people who are already established? And that's a very rare feat for a wrestler to do. Because I know there's a saying, you don't make the title doesn't make the man makes the title. And in that regard, you don't make the star makes the competitor. And Roman just, hey, you were already established, but here's your other peak that you haven't hit. Oh, John Cena, here's another peak that you haven't hit because you're standing across from Roman Reigns. And John Cena took that peak and gave it to LA Knight. So now when he comes out, he gets this ridiculous pop. And I feel like it gets louder and louder every week.
Yeah, even if he doesn't do anything, the pops for LA Knight just continually be there. Pops
Mm-hmm.
for Jey Uso are there. Now with Cody Rhodes, like his pops have always been consistent, but they keep getting louder and louder,
Louder.
louder.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in like a very like prosperous time, and I think why people compare it to the Attitude Era so much is you don't even have like popular guys, you have over guys where it's like
Mm-hmm.
when I was watching through my teens, the biggest like bulk of it was like who were like over were like Cena, Orton, Ray. You know what I mean? And it was always those three, like some combination. And then we would see like Cena and Orton wrestle so much that we were like, oh, God, we gotta get some more, more like young blood during here. Then we got Roman, Dean, and Seth, and then all of them went crazy. And now when we're in this chapter of Roman Reigns, now like for year one of Roman, it was establishing this persona. It was establishing this guy because if you notice in Roman Reigns' championship matches for his year one, there was interference, but there was not as much as we would come to know later down the line. Like
Yeah.
like there were obviously interference with the KO matches. There were interference with the WrestleMania match with Jay, and then there was interference with the Edge match, but that was with Seth Rollins, not the Bloodline. But again, it was establishing this Roman Reigns as a heel, and he won some matches straight up, like the Cesaro match, this John Cena match. Uh, you also had you could kind of say the Kevin Owens match was finicky because the faulty handcuffs. Uh,
Yeah.
the Jey Uso match. So you had a lot of other clean victories in comparison with everything else. So it wasn't like the stereotypical bloodline interference that's been memed to death. And
Mm-hmm.
that I memed on TikTok, but I misspelled submission, which people remind me every couple of times. They keep commenting on it. You see, getting on the trend is really hard, ladies and gentlemen.
Get it together, Richie.
You know, Doug. I'm just a man. I make mistakes. I misspell some things.
It's okay.
So
I'm there too, bro.
yeah, but if someone misspells a comment on my TikTok, I will correct them, and I will not apologize for it.
Listen, only I can do that. You can't do that. Only I can.
No, yeah, it's actually like sometimes I feel bad because they'll delete their comments when I correct them, and I'm like, oh, I didn't mean it. I'm like, yeah, I kind of meant that.
You taxed me. Nope, I gotta go now. Bye.
If there was a word for this year one of Roman Reigns that you would describe it, what would it be?
um Establishing the beast, introducing the beast, righting the wrongs of the beast. The best way I can say it is the phoenix. The phoenix dies once every 10,000 something years, and it rises itself from the ashes. It was Roman face died. It died, and it belonged to be in a pile of ashes. But when those pile of ashes burnt once more and summoned the tribal chief and a brand new can of everything, new threads, new clothes, my hair is better, my shoes is better, Papa John's. It was just a resurgence of someone that we knew had that factor, but it just needed to have the right person to pull it out of them, and Paul Heyman was that right person.
Before we go, let's touch on that dynamic with Paul Heyman, because Paul Heyman does bring a lot of stuff out of just the charisma out of a lot of people, whether he intends to or not. Now, we've had some Paul Heyman failures. We had Curtis Axel, Ryback, Cesaro,
Cesaro.
just to name a couple. But his partnerships with Brock, Punk, Roman, all very different from each other. With Brock, it was more about being his hype man. With Punk, it was more about being his friend, associate. With Roman, Paul was almost afraid of him because Roman was the one who kind of like took him out of irrelevancy and brought him to be relevant again. What do you think is the strongest partnership between the three, and why did Roman's work so well with Paul?
Um, Out of the three, I am gonna go with Roman and Paul. The dynamics were there, but the thing with their dynamics, Paul operated like Roman on the business side, and then Roman operated like Paul on the action side. So when you have two people who have similar mindsets on the different fields, you can kind of bounce stuff off of them and kind of translate it into your own way, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So like prime example, and this is just me making up a random scenario, this never happened. So like they would be like in the back, and and Roman's like, I want to run with this title for X amount of days, but I've got travel and this, stopping me from doing this. And Paul would be like, you can negotiate doing this, and you can make like a 50-50 split with this. And then Roman would be like, oh, well, I can do this and this and this and this. And it sounds weird, but it makes sense because that's kind of the dynamic. I have my best friend. We're like totally two different people in two different fields, but like he can say one thing and I can translate it into my own little way of what I'm doing. Like, oh, I can do this. Hey, thanks for doing that. I appreciate it. And it just worked. And not only that, I felt like because Paul has such a deep relationship with that family anyway, since the Dangerous Alliance, that just made it even more put together. He knows the Wild Samoans. He's known Roman Reigns, I think he said, since he was a baby. So it's one of those. This is a perfect line in the sand for all of this. He knows how they operate. He knows just about everything in that family. So why not? You know.
Yeah.
Um, Paul also has a genius mind for the business, and Roman was so willing to learn from Paul, and it showed. Because there would be times like, wise man, I'm not understanding this, kind of fill me in, and they would go off camera, and then you would see Roman again, and he would have more sense of, okay, this is what happened, this is what happened. Thanks, wise man. I appreciate you. Now get back and acknowledge me. I got this. And it's always had that dynamic, and I love that dynamic. Like Paul is one of those people where it was like, I can handle this problem, but if I handle this problem for you, what's the point? What are you learning from this? So, what I can do is I can steer you into the right direction, but you're going to have to figure it out yourself.
Mm.
And I really think that's what the tribal chief, like this whole year one was, I'm going to steer you in the right direction. You're going to do this, you're going to do that. But when it comes to heavy work, you got to beat Kevin Owens. You got to beat Rey Mysterio. Got to beat Brock Lesnar. You got to beat Jey Uso, and so on and so on. You got to beat Cesaro.
Yeah, it's definitely like establishing the tribal chief character, and when we get to year two, it's going to be a lot of development for the Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman relationship. But that is the tease for it. That is the tease. It's going to be all about Roman, Paul Heyman, and Brock because God help me, I have to go through a lot of those matches again. But at least it ends with a great one, in my
Oh
opinion.
yeah.
But that is then. This is now. Wrestling Wizard, aka Doug. Happy birthday! Please plug your stuff. Tell the people where they can find you. They can praise you. Say happy birthday. It doesn't matter if this episode comes out after the fact. They will wish you a happy birthday. Every day is Doug Day.
Hell yeah. Rusev Day. You can find me on Spotify, TikTok, and YouTube under Wrestling with Just Doug. I'm really easy to find. I try to make it as simple as possible. New episodes of the podcast will be moved to Thursday instead of Monday. I'm making my Mondays recording days. Um, we have merch on runtheropes.shop. Richie has merch. I have merch. Miss Christina has merch. BC's got merch. Kayla the Ring Queen's got merch. Miss Evie 216 Bonnet Bitch has got merch. Make sure you get our merch. We have drip for sale. Support us, please, please. We're trying to make it big in this wrestling space, so you get some merch and you can help your boys out. Just throwing that out there. And also, I'm also a musician on this end. I have some musical things in the works. September 6th, mark your calendars. I have some big special things coming September 6th that I have been working. And also, Club WrestleMania, July 6th, 2025. So, y'all be out on the look for that. It is my project that I'm bringing pro wrestling music and raves together under one household.
Ooh, can't wait to attend one of those.
Mm-hmm. You gotta come on down, Brody. You gotta come on down.
I'll come on down. It's expensive out there, but for you, I'll come on down.
Hey, well, we can jack you up somewhere. The only thing you gotta worry about is food.
That's true. I do like to eat food, so I probably have to budget that a little bit. Can't just not gonna just eat ramen. I have to actually be meticulous about what I'm eating. But can't,
But
I can't do the college diet anymore. I tried.
oh no, oh no, not the freshman 15. Oh no.
That's gonna do it for this episode of Wrestling Retold and Relive with Richie Mars. I, of course, am Richie Mars at Retold Richie Mars on the Instagram and the TikTok. New videos every day. Try to get 2 to 3 videos out there per day. Depends on what's going in the wrestling sphere and if I can talk about it and if the algorithm likes me. Hopefully they don't hear me on that because I
Hey,
like.
we're gonna push that.
We're gonna push the algo, brother. And again, new wrestling retold and relived episodes with myself and guests like Doug every Tuesdays on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. TTFN, ta-ta for now, and we will see you next time.